Someone has just opened with a prayer. Father, I just thank you for the opportunity to be in this congregation. Father, I ask you to not let me do any harm to this congregation, Father. I ask you to give me wisdom and sober me up, Father, that I hear from you, Lord, and in the name of Yeshua. The one thing that Rabbi didn't tell you about is about 2 to 3 weeks ago, Dimitri, the bookkeeper in Nikolaev, her son, was lost in the war. This is a young man that Rabbi Yuri baptized, that Ina knew. They loved him. They loved his mother. And, he's gone. So a couple things. We do need to remember to pray for Ukraine. And we also need to remember what Rabbi Yuri and Ina are dealing with at home, with their friends and their family, and what they're under. And then the things that we bring to them sometimes seems awfully silly when we think about the things that they have to deal with all the time. So help us to be sensitive and to be worthy of them as a congregation. Okay. So I want to preface my talk with every time I speak and address the congregation, I'm really talking about what I'm going through. So, in the name of Yeshua, if anything I say brings any, points a finger at anybody in here, I rebuke that. In the name of Yeshua, I rebuke Satan. I'm going to ask the Lord, would you rebuke the Satan over this congregation? He's a liar, and he accuses us. So I'm talking about me. And what I found out is I'm not unique. I think I am sometimes, but I'm really not. But if I'm dealing with things, maybe there are other people dealing with things as well. So don't let the enemy use anything that I say against you in any way. So I know that we all long to hear the words from Yeshua. At the end of the day, we want to stand before the Lord and hear him say, "Well done, thou good and faithful consumer." You think about that for a second. When I start noticing things, that don't matter, I've become a consumer. I don't really like the key of that song. I don't really like the tempo. People are moving around, just whatever it is. The little stupid things that compete for my affection surprise me because I'm now consuming. When you're a consumer, it's about you. It's very dangerous. We can generally be defined as either consumers or servants, generally speaking. Consumers do seem to constantly be discerning the value of a product provided by those who are serving. They're inherently transient, willing to change brands or services with very little thought or regard to the former brand. It is the American way. I can tell you that this is not common around the world. It is not common around the world. I've had the opportunity to come into contact with people who are from other countries, and the way they worship and serve, they don't understand the American church in a lot of ways. Our gospel is a little different than theirs. It can really come across that way. So companies invest heavily in appealing to and retaining the loyalty of the consumer. In short, they're attempting to serve the consumer. It is seldom ever settled. We readily accept terms like the customer or consumer is always right. Just give them what they want. We're here to serve. Have it your way. Those are just a few examples. Faithfulness is just not a part of that equation. In certain ways, it shouldn't be. In certain things, it shouldn't be. But consumers tend to not value those who serve, or at least not as highly as they value themselves, and are often happy to let them know when they miss the mark or disappoint them. Side note, never, ever punish a food server if they're having a bad day. Be generous with these people. If you've ever been in the food service business or industry, you know what I'm talking about. It's very difficult. And so we never hang a bad day around their neck. They're serving us, and they're serving food. It's amazing. So just saying. So where does this system not really work well? Okay, in a lot of areas. But we had a high schooler. He's now out of high school. And this child is sweet. He's gentle. He's an all-district champion wrestler, but he's gentle in spirit. And he's a sweetheart. He went to a girl's birthday party in high school. And he came home. I said, "How was the party?" And it was boring. I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Did they have a swimming pool?" "Yeah." "Did you swim?" "Sure." "Did they have food and drink?" "Yeah." "Cake?" "Yeah." You failed your host. You were invited to celebrate an event in her life. And she did all of this, went through all this effort, and you went just as a consumer. You weren't there to make this party good. A good party has good guests. You come and you honor the host or the hostess. You do your part to make sure it's a good event. You failed your friend on a very important day for her. Maybe you should apologize. Not really, but he needed to understand that he has an obligation to people, not just to take, but to give. Make her party good. What's really beyond shameful is that this value system has infiltrated the American church. It is a quintessential American thing that we don't witness in other parts of the world. I mean, with some exception, but not really. Not really. We attended a congregation for 20 years. At that time, these mega churches were opening all around the city. About every year or 2 years, a new congregation would open. And they'd have a dynamic pastor, programs, fog machines, coffee shops. I just said, boy, they're emulating culture to market to people. They were becoming more relevant, quote unquote. We want to be relevant. Just look where that has led. It's not finished. People would flock to these like herds, looking for new and better pastures or experiences. They all seemed to move together from one new church to the other. The pain of the pastors was apparent and obvious. Feckless consumers, leaving their church, leaving their pastors, leaving their family. They were discounting their pastors, and it took a toll on pastors who had done nothing wrong, who said yes to the Lord and were serving and ministering to the congregation, but they didn't have the right fog machine, the right music. There was not a Starbucks in the lobby. I witnessed a good pastor, a friend, and a good man was ravaged by this behavior. Was ravaged. There's not a person that left the congregation that didn't hurt him. He took it all so personal. He was invested. As consumers, we can become disenchanted very easily because we're evaluating every part of our experience. Everything we're evaluating, we're grading. We give grades, all of our experience. Those of us who are the most at risk, okay, I guess this is me, okay, are the ones who are the least invested. Talk to people like Pastor Yuri, Ukraine, whom we know, has his family living in the U.S. now for more than a year, close to 2 years. They live, his children, how many children does he have? 4? 5 children? And he'll tell you the story, but they live in a Sunday school room. They have to pack up their air mattresses constantly for services. They've left their home. Their father would come here and he would toil and labor and work to take resources back to Ukraine to build a building. He comes and sees his family, and then he goes back to Ukraine and he ministers. And his church is packed. He's a servant, and he's faithful. He's faithful. these children get it. If you're ever around them for just a few minutes, they're absolutely amazing. They kind of emulate David Korshin. David has a good sense of things that are really important and things that are not so important. These children are full of joy. They're full of life. They laugh. They engage. They love their parents. They honor their parents. They're doing their part, doing what they're supposed to do. Their father is doing his part and doing what he's supposed to do. He's not a consumer. He's a faithful servant under most difficult circumstances. Bill and Shirley Zimko. Now, I'm not going to name everybody that serves in this congregation, so if I don't name you, please don't take it personal. But just a few people that we know serve. They serve this congregation. It's not glorious service. It's hard. It's faithful. It's every week. It's toil. And they delight in serving this congregation. And they're serving the Lord. And they've had extreme difficulty in their lives, unimaginable pain in their lives. If my cable goes out for an hour, don't even call me. If my toilet backs up, I just sell the house. So these people have walked through unimaginable pain or walking through unimaginable pain. If you look at our rabbi and rabbits and what's going on in their home, but they serve the Lord because they love him. And they serve this congregation because they love us, and they are faithful to their own hurt. They're faithful. Look at somebody like Ruth. Ruth has been on a long journey. Those who know her know. But you have to find somebody else to tell you about it. It's not going to be her. She's here all the time. The Zimkos are here all the time. And she is serving, and she is serving, and she is serving with delight, with joy, with happiness, and with delight. So whatever we're looking for as consumers, I don't think we're going to find it. So there's somebody else in our congregation who's learned something about service at a very young age. It's Seth. Seth is very quiet. Seth is a servant. He's faithful. He's just quiet. He likes to do this stuff anyway. And then you look up one day and he's at the Torah reading Hebrew. Seth, you never told us you were even studying Hebrew. And he just does it. This is a young man who cuts a very deep wake. And he is faithful, and he's a servant. So I'm going to tell myself a little bit more. I used to love to play golf, and I would say, well, I can't go to church. I'm going to go play golf. These guys called me. I'm going to take Jesus with me. How dumb. How dumb. And, so I can tell you I shot, if you know what this means, you may not, I shot a couple of subpar rounds of golf. I had a hole in one. And I'm like, there should be more. This should feel better. I need to go to the mall, hold up a sign. I played below par. I have a hole in one. Somebody should be celebrating me. It was empty. I mean, it was what it was, but it wasn't fulfilling. Fishing the same way. I toil all day with the zine. We'd fish. We got on fish one day, and we were loading the boat up, top water fishing, standard of standards, trout. And we just said, I don't really want to catch any more fish. You ready to go home? Yeah. Best day we've ever had. And it just didn't do it for us. It just didn't really do what we thought it would do. We would spend all day catching nothing. Getting covered up with fish, we stopped in an hour. I can't explain that. We were consumers. It just can't do for you what it cannot do for you. Ask Ruth, ask Seth, ask Pastor Uri, ask them. This stuff is just hollow. So I don't think that we want to be consumers. I don't think it's our plan to be consumers. We just have not recognized it. So I was talking with a friend of mine today. So you're either working on your healing or you're staying sick. Another thing about golf. I don't know why I talk about golf. It's a two-legged man game, by the way, so I don't play golf anymore, but just saying. But the first time I played golf, I shot like 140. Horrible score. And then when I stopped playing golf, I was playing at even par pretty consistently or close around. I had no more fun at even par than I did when I shot 140. If 140 weren't fun, I would have never done the work to get better. But 140 was fun, 130 was funner than 140, 120. It's just the whole process is fun. Healing is fun. Growing is fun. It takes work. But you're either doing that or you're staying sick or you're getting sicker. We all have walked through this life. That's why, this is not my thing, right? But if you are at Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, you say, my name is Lee and I'm an alcoholic. If you can't say that, you're not getting healthy. They know it. If you say that, it means you're getting healthy. If you can't say that, you're staying sick. They know that. They know that. So we all have to understand, we have to examine ourselves and embrace the process of getting healthy and growing. So we don't really want to be consumers, but we need to recognize our condition, and we've grown into these patterns from constant exposure through modern media and messaging. So I'm examining my own life in this regard. So please remember, this is really about me as I stand here tonight. I'm falling well short of the mark I'm talking about, but there's a path available to me. There's a path available to me that will usher me out of this condition. I'm much more of a consumer than I thought. I really am. Somebody told me Saturday. And sometimes I say things to people and they're difficult. So when somebody says something to me that's difficult, I have to go before the Lord with it. And if I discount it or if I dismiss it, then I'm denying the courage it took for this person to say something to me. And I can't, and I have to go before the Lord and examine myself and let him examine me. It's important because I want to be healthy. I want to be healthy. So just because I'm not as bad as I once was, it's not really all that comforting to me. Servants, on the other hand, they tend to value those whom they serve more highly than themselves. So if I'm in a restaurant, server forgets my order. I've seen these videos where they take their burger back to the counter and they say, I didn't order mustard. Who put mustard on my burger? They slam the burger down. The person making the burgers are servants. They say, I'll make another one. I want my money back. Call the manager. This happens. This is a sick condition. So the server is serving the consumer, and the consumer does not even value the server. People who serve, servants, are seldom malcontent. They're seldom contemptuous. They're seldom dissatisfied. They're not unfulfilled. They're not easily distracted by those things that so easily beset us. They cannot conceive of harming the very congregation they so faithfully serve. So I always say I'm very vigilant about things that could harm the congregation. I just wasn't as vigilant about me. So this is the Lord's mercy. This is important. This is important. So in short, the servants have cracked the code. So in their desire to look like Yeshua, okay, so what does he look like? He says in 2 Timothy, if we're faithless he remains faithful, for he cannot deny himself. This is who the servant wants to look like. The WWJD, remember that? What would Jesus do? Yeah, well, he's faithful. 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 1. So you should regard us as the Messiah's servants, as trustees of God's secret truths. Now, the one thing that is asked of a trustee is that he be found trustworthy. And it matters very little to me how I am evaluated by you or by any human court. Oh, that's a powerful statement. In fact, I don't even evaluate myself. So I'm going to paraphrase this. I'm going to give Rabbi Yuri room to correct me, but he's like, don't judge me. I don't care. Human courts can judge me. I don't care. I don't even judge myself. I'm not aware of anything against me, but this does not make me innocent. Does not make me innocent. So don't judge me because I'm innocent. I'm guilty. I'm not innocent. This doesn't make me innocent. I'm not aware of anything against me, but the one who evaluates me is the Lord. So don't pronounce judgment prematurely before the Lord comes, for he will bring to light what is now hidden in darkness. He will expose the motives of the people's hearts, and then each will receive from God whatever praise he deserves. So Dave Ott, somewhere around here, has been very generous. He lets me play my guitar with him in worship. I'm not serving you when I'm playing my guitar because I love to play my guitar. A family of muskrats could call me and say, can you meet me in the park to play your guitar? I would say yes. I would say, sure, I'll do that. I'll do that. If I pretend, because the Lord's going to judge my heart, it's my heart, the motive of my heart. It's not a bad thing to play the guitar. It's a good thing to worship. I love to worship. I love to worship. So it's not a bad thing. But if I think I'm playing guitar and worshiping, maybe, but maybe not. With me, no. No. So we have to examine ourselves because the Lord examines our hearts. We would also want to hear the words from the Lord when he says, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Those are the words we want to hear. I believe we want to be faithful, but may not know how. It goes way beyond an act of our will. So what are some attributes of those who are faithful? What are some of the attributes? So if you want to be faithful, you can sit in a corner and just be 89 years old and be faithful. But that's not really how it works. Because we have options, choices, energy, all kinds of stuff. But number one, a faithful servant loves the Lord. Number one, they love the Lord. So no condemnation, but work on this. Work on loving the Lord. Ask the Lord to help you. Talk to Rabbi Yuri. He'll help you. Number two, they love others. So the number two will manifest if we work on number one. So if we love the Lord with all of our heart, our strength, our mind, we will love our neighbors as ourselves. We can't do two without doing one. If we do one, we will do two. The servant values what the Lord values. He values his word. Again, good for me to hear this. To give his word space in my life and time. He loves his word. In the beginning was the word. His mitzvahs, his festivals, observances, Shabbats, including new moon, the Shabbat, the Sabbaths. These should be priorities to the one who loves God and cares about the things that he cares about. I don't know if I need to go to that. You're sick. I'm sick. prioritize these events as their opportunities to grow and their nourishment for our hearts and our flesh, and they honor the Lord. They honor the Lord. I can't keep all the commandments, but you know what I can do? I can show up for the Sabbaths. I can show up for his mitzvahs, his festivals. I can do that. They love to serve the Lord by serving his people. This is delightful to them. This is delightful to a servant. Serving people, serving the Lord. It's just, his kingdom doesn't work like anything else. The servant delights in serving. They are generally invested financially with their hearts, time, prayers, emotions, and their presence. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. We should reflect on if we are here as consumers or servants. So I don't judge anybody, but I examine myself. Are we doing our part? We have the congregation we want and love by making this a congregation that we want and that we love. Nobody can do that for us. We make this the congregation that we want to be a part of and that we love. We have to do our part. We have to learn to be faithful servants. Nobody should feel condemned or judged. I'm not here to examine you. This is a diagnostic event. It's just diagnostic. So it helps me examine myself. If it helps you examine yourself, then please do. Matthew 25:21, complete Jewish Bible. Okay, his master said to him, "Excellent. You are a good and trustworthy servant. You have been faithful with a small amount, so I will put you in charge of a large amount. Come and join in your master's happiness." Let your attitude toward one another, so Philippians 2:5-8, let your attitude toward one another be governed by your being in union with the Messiah, Yeshua. Though he was in the form of God, he did not regard equality with God something to be possessed by force. On the contrary, he emptied himself, and that he took on the form of a slave by becoming like human beings are. And when he appeared as a human being, he humbled himself still more by becoming obedient even to death on a stake as a criminal. You really want to be like the Lord. You really want to be like the Lord. Luke 22. He went about a stone's throw away from them, kneeled down and prayed, "Father, if you're willing to take this cup away from me, still, not my will, but yours be done." There appeared to him an angel from heaven, giving him strength. And in great anguish he prayed more intensely, so that his sweat became like drops of blood falling to the ground. On rising from prayer and coming to the Talmudim, he found them sleeping because of their grief. He's not condemning them because of their grief. So he's being faithful. He's saying, I don't want to do this. And his body manifested stress by sweating blood. You want to be like him? This is hard to read. Matthew 26. Then Yeshua went with his Talmudim to a place called Gat Shemanim. I think that's Gethsemane. There's people who know how to say that better than me who can correct me. He said to them, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took with him Kepha and Zebediah's two sons. Okay. Grief and anguish came over him. And he said to them, "My heart is so filled with sadness, I could die." My heart is filled, so filled with sadness, I could die. Remain here and stay awake with me. Going on a little further, he fell on his face, praying, my Father, if possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want. Again, the servant is being faithful to the Father. It's an important thing to think about in our own lives. It is important. He returned to the Talmudim and found them sleeping. He said, Kepha, were you so weak that you couldn't stay awake with me for even an hour? Stay awake and pray that you will not be put to the test. The spirit indeed is eager, but human nature is weak. A second time he went off and prayed, my Father, if this cup cannot pass away unless I drink it, let what you want be done. Again he returned and found them sleeping. Their eyes were so heavy. Leaving them again, he went off and prayed a third time. You're beginning to see faithfulness is not an easy thing, even for Messiah. He's basically, to me, it sounds like he's pleading with his Father for another way. But he's going to be faithful. He's going to serve all humanity, but he's serving his Father by serving humanity. For now, so he asked, a third time, he says, take your rest. Then he came to the Talmudim and said, for now, go on sleeping, take your rest. Look, the time has come for the Son of Man to be betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let's go. Here comes my betrayer. So the event that he was facing, I think, was at the end of his suffering on the cross. He experienced something that he never could even imagine. He died, not in his flesh, but he was separated from his Father. He had never known that in all eternity. He never could imagine what that would feel like. So all of this courage, all this faithfulness, knowing everything he knew, in this event, he said, my God, why did you forsake me? He couldn't see his Father. He died. And it overwhelmed his consciousness because he knew, but it was too much for him. So we want to be servants. Love the Lord, serve this congregation, and ask the Lord to show us where we're acting like consumers. I'm telling you, he's showing me. I wish it were not painful. I wish it were easy, but it is good because he's not leaving me in this place. He's not leaving me. I trust, so I'm going to say a prayer, okay? So anybody in here that is examining their lives, Father, would you keep the enemy silent, but may they put themselves in your hands for admonition, for correction, that they would hear your voice, and that they say yes to you, that they say yes in a very deep way, so that they may delight, and that we may delight, like those around that we witness who are servants. So I want to say, so I had to tell you something. An old friend of mine came to the congregation, and they were here a couple of times, and they said something to me. It just rocked me. They said, we want to serve. So how do you even know we're going to be nice to you? What if somebody doesn't toast your bagel? You never know, right? You may not want to be here. I didn't say that. But I'm like, yes. Yes. We have a young man, 14 years old, walked in the congregation. Second time he's here, he wants to serve. He's serving, finding his way. So that's the congregation we want to be. So let the Lord have you. If you lose your life, you'll find it. Okay, if you try to find your life, you'll lose it. Scratch golf ain't all that good. Okay, delighting in serving, delighting in the Lord delighting in you, giving you a life that he has for you is really, really good. So.
It's